If you have been watching Kwababa on Mzansi Magic, you already know that this week is not a normal week. There is one question that is now sitting on everybody's chest, and that question is simple but heavy: who is really Zwelakhe's father? Ndoba okwenzeke onemela, akusanani sane. Stay with me till the end because there is a twist that even I did not see coming, and by the time we finish this review you will understand why the whole family is shaking. Let's start from the beginning of the episode, because everything that happens today builds on something that has been quietly boiling for weeks. We all know that Zwelakhe, who everybody respects as Mombokozi, has been carrying a secret that she refused to open up about. She is the matriarch, the woman who leads the Church Women's Guild, the one they call Umama Wumthandazo, and yet underneath all that respect there has been a truth she has been protecting with everything she has. The rumor has always been there in the background, whispered about, hinted at, but never confirmed, that the man everyone believed was Zwelakhe's father may not actually be his biological father. And today, that whisper finally gets louder than it has ever been. What I appreciate about how this story has been built is that it is not rushed. Zwelakhe is not written as a villain who is simply lying for the sake of drama. She is written as a mother who is scared, a woman who knows that once this truth comes out, it does not just affect her, it affects Zwelakhe's identity, his place in the Mackay's family, and everything he has built his life around. So when Zwelakhe starts pushing her for answers, her instinct is still to protect the secret, and she tells him, in her own way, to stay out of her business. But we all know that is not going to work anymore, because Zwelakhe is not a child. He is a grown man who has just found out that the foundation of his life might be built on a lie, and he deserves to know the truth about his own background. This is where the episode really picks up pace. Zwelakhe decides that if his mother will not give him answers willingly, he will find them himself, and that is where the idea of a DNA test comes in. Umbuzo lo awusko ikayenje, Yusufai glafo okumili kutholekeli kona ikiniso njezinambalo, njesayensi. He tells the people close to him that next week he is going to take matters into his own hands and get tested, so that once and for all, the paternity question can be settled with facts and not with stories. Can you imagine the tension in that house right now? A son telling his own mother, in so many words, that he no longer trusts her word alone and needs scientific proof of who his father really is. That is heartbreak on both sides, and the show does a good job of making you feel for Zwelakhe even while you are frustrated with her for hiding the truth for so long. Now let's talk about Zwelakhe's cousin, Mloba, because his storyline this episode is just as messy, if not messier. If you have been following Kwababa from the start, you know Mloba is the one who is always trying to prove himself, always trying to step out of Zwelakhe's shadow, and unfortunately he keeps choosing the wrong way to do it. In this episode, Zwelakhe is trying to get his hands on some important documents, papers that could help clarify the family's history and maybe even shed light on this paternity mystery. But getting information out of Dumisani, Mloba's father, proves difficult. Dumisani is not an easy man to deal with. He is described by the people around him as prideful, entitled, and quick to hold a grudge, especially against Zwelakhe, who he sees as the one who gets all the respect in the family while his own sons struggle to be seen. So Zwelakhe turns to Mloba for help, because Mloba is known to be the easier one to convince, the one who can be manipulated if you know which buttons to press. And that is exactly what happens. Mloba ends up searching through his father's things to find the documents, and here's where it gets a bit sloppy on his part. He gets caught almost in the act. Someone nearly walks in on him while he is going through Dumisani's belongings, and he has to scramble to hide what he was doing. If you ask me, that was actually one of the more realistic touches in the episode, because when people search in a panic, they don't leave things looking perfect. A room that looks too neat after someone claims they were just looking for something is always suspicious, and I think the show is setting up for someone to notice that things were disturbed, which means Mloba's little secret mission might not stay hidden for long. Then there's the whole business side of the story, And this is where Kwababa continues to show us that money and family loyalty do not always mix well. Mackay's Logistics, the family transport business, becomes a point of conflict again this episode. It comes out that Mloba has been using the company's trucks for his own side dealings, without proper authorization, and worse, he has been meeting people alone at night to move things using those same trucks. That is a huge red flag, and when Zwelakhe eventually finds out, you can feel his patience running thin. This is a man who is already dealing with a personal crisis about his own identity, and now he also has to deal with a cousin who is quietly stealing from the family business behind everyone's back. It is a lot for one person to carry, and the writers are clearly building Zwelakhe up as someone who is being tested from every single direction this season. Let's not forget about the spiritual thread running through this episode too, because Kwababa has never shied away from showing us how deeply the ancestors and tradition are woven into this family's life. Every time Zwelakhe visits a Sangoma, the message is the same, Abikini baye kufuna, meaning his ancestors are calling him, wanting him to pay attention to something he has been ignoring. In the context of everything happening with his paternity question, this hits different, because it suggests that the truth about his father is not just a modern-day family secret, it is something that is tied to his spiritual identity as well. Zulu tradition places so much weight on knowing your lineage, on being able to answer for your father's house, so if it turns out that the man Zwelakhe has always called father is not his biological father, that is not just an emotional wound, it could shake the very core of who he believes himself to be, spiritually and culturally. Meanwhile, on the romantic side of things, there is drama brewing around Zwelakhe's relationship as well. There is mention of an ex resurfacing on social media, trying to get his attention again, right in the middle of everything else going on in his life. And then there is the matter of a wedding date between Zwelakhe and Bahumi, with pressure from the family, particularly from his mother figures, to just get the wedding done and over with. It is almost ironic, because here is a young couple trying to plan a happy future together, while the past keeps interrupting with unresolved questions about identity, money, and loyalty. I think this is smart writing on the show's part, because it keeps raising the stakes. How can Zwelakhe fully commit to his future with Bahumi when his past is this unstable? There's also a very strong moment involving Dumisani's wife in this episode, and honestly, I have to give credit where it's due. She finally stands her ground when Mloba comes at her with disrespect, accusing her of not defending him the way a mother should. And her response is sharp. She tells him plainly that he behaves like his father's puppet, that he does whatever Dumisani says without ever showing that he has a backbone or a voice of his own. Watching that scene, I actually agreed with her completely. Mloba has spent this whole season letting his father push him around, letting his father's pride and grudges dictate his own choices, and it was refreshing to hear someone in the family finally call that out directly instead of tiptoeing around it. Now, the family tries to smooth things over by calling a meeting at Dumisani's house, but even that does not go smoothly, because Dumisani, true to form, cannot let go of his pride. There is a moment where money becomes an issue, and instead of simply apologizing for whatever he has done wrong, Dumisani tries to justify himself, tries to make it seem like taking what wasn't his was somehow acceptable because of his position in the family. Eventually, under pressure, he does something close to an apology, but you can tell it is more about saving face than genuinely admitting fault. And this leads to a serious threat. Someone in the family warns him that if he does not change his attitude, he will not be welcome back, that they are ready to close this chapter and shut the door on him for good. This tension boils over into a much bigger confrontation involving Dumisani's son, Nlanhla. Now, Nlanhla has always been seen as one of the more level-headed members of that side of the family, someone with a bit more sense than his brother Mloba. But in this episode, something changes. It's implied that Nlanhla has finally had enough of his father's behavior and his father's disrespect towards the rest of the family, particularly towards Zwelakhe's side. Feelings boil over, harsh words are exchanged, and Dumisani, in a fit of anger and stubborn pride, actually kicks his own son out of the house. Think about that for a second, a father so consumed by his own ego and grudges that he would rather push his own child out onto the street than admit he might be in the wrong. Naturally, Nlanhla has nowhere else to turn but to Zwelakhe's house, seeking shelter from the very family his father has been feuding with. This is such a powerful character moment because it flips the dynamic completely. Suddenly the enemy's son is standing at Zwelakhe's door needing help, and how Zwelakhe responds to that says everything about the kind of leader he is trying to be within this family. From what we see, Zwelakhe does not turn him away out of spite, even though he has every reason to be frustrated with that entire branch of the family right now. Then, in a twist that I honestly did not expect, Zwelakhe extends an olive branch to Mloba as well, going as far as suggesting that Mloba should be the chief negotiator for his lobola discussions with Bahumi's family. On the surface, this seems like an incredibly generous move, a sign that Zwelakhe wants to rebuild bridges rather than hold on to resentment forever. But this decision does not sit well with everyone, especially with an uncle figure who feels sidelined and confused as to why Zwelakhe would trust Mloba with something so important, especially after everything that has come out about Mloba's secret dealings with the family trucks. It creates this uncomfortable tension where you as the viewer are left wondering, is Zwelakhe being the bigger person, or is he making a mistake by trusting someone who has already proven he can be dishonest when it benefits him? I think that's actually the genius of this episode. It refuses to give us a clean answer. Zwelakhe is shown as a man who wants peace, who wants unity in his family, who is trying to rise above the pettiness around him, but at the same time, we as the audience know things he doesn't fully know yet, like the extent of Mloba's misuse of the company trucks. That dramatic irony is what keeps you glued to the screen, because you're waiting for the moment when everything Zwelakhe doesn't know finally catches up to him. And let's bring it back to the biggest question of the day, the one in our title, who is Zwelakhe's father? By the end of this episode, we still don't have the DNA results, we still don't have Slindahl's full confession, but what we do have is a clear countdown. Next week, according to what Zwelakhe himself has said, he is taking this into his own hands. That means the coming episodes are going to give us the moment so many fans have been waiting for, the moment where science, tradition, and family secrets all collide in one dramatic reveal. My honest take, as someone who has been following this story closely, is that the show is doing an excellent job of making sure this reveal is earned rather than rushed. We've seen Slindahl's fear, we've seen Zwelakhe's growing frustration, we've seen the spiritual warnings from the Sangoma, and we've seen the practical steps being taken toward a scientific answer. All of these threads are pointing toward a moment that could completely redefine who Zwelakhe is, who inherits what within the Mackay's family, and how the power dynamics between Dumisani's household and Slindahl's household will shift once the truth is finally out in the open. Of course, I want to be upfront with all of you watching this review. Some of the finer details around exactly how the paternity truth will unfold have not been fully confirmed on screen yet, and it's important that we don't treat speculation as confirmed fact. What we do know for certain is the emotional core of this storyline, a mother protecting a secret out of fear, a son demanding the truth out of a need to understand his own identity, and a wider family caught in the crossfire of pride, money, and loyalty. Whatever the DNA test reveals next week, it is going to change the Mackay's family forever, and I don't think any of us are ready for how deep this rabbit hole is going to go. So that's my full breakdown of this episode of Kwababa. Let me know in the comments who you think Zwelakhe's real father actually is. Do you think Slindahl's late husband is truly not his biological father, or do you think there's another twist coming that none of us have even considered yet? Drop your theories below, like this video if you enjoyed the breakdown, and subscribe so you don't miss my review of next week's episode, because if Zwelakhe really goes through with that DNA test, things in the Mackay's household are about to explode. Until next time, Njayabonga for watching, and I'll see you in the next Kwababa review.